Are we ready? Okay, so what we have here is a Sennheiser EW100 G3. These are really popular transmitters. We've got a whole bunch of these we use at our church for the sound system. And they have some problems. They're really good units, but there's some common things. The G2s had even more problems. They fixed a lot of those with the G3 series. One of the problems, though, that they still have is the buttons don't hold up, and occasionally, for whatever reason, the little dimple buttons underneath these things get jammed, and then you can no longer change settings or set sensitivity. Now this one also has a problem that we rarely see, but we have seen a bunch of them come through over the years like this, where the LED light burns out as well. Today we're just going to fix the dimple buttons. So what we'll do here to take this apart, it's actually pretty easy and quick. You can see this button seems to be working fine. This button seems to be working fine. The up button works, the down button is frozen, and we can't press it, it doesn't work. So what we'll do to take it apart, we don't even actually have to remove the batteries, we just take a little screwdriver, and there's a pin that runs across the bottom of the door. In the end here, we're just going to push in the hole on that pin and slide this pin out. Now the door comes off. We're going to flip it over. Now these models have a key in the back of the belt clip, so to get the belt clip off, you have to push the spring down and then line up that little key with the hole, and the belt clip should pop right out. Then we're going to take a little torque screwdriver and we're going to pop these 4 screws out. Now all 4 of these screws have to come out, and this whole back plate has to come off because there's another screw right here that holds everything in place on the inside, and that's what we need to get off so that we can replace those buttons. So we'll take these 4 screws out. And then this whole back plate just slides right off. So move that out of the way. And now this is the last screw we need to take out right here. Now, once we have this out, we actually want to grab these 2 ends here of this board, and you're going to carefully pull this out and you're actually going to pull the antenna out of that little slider. The other thing you need to pay special attention to is this little groove right here on the back of the battery box. That piece of plastic keeps everything tied together and keeps that cable tied together. It does on this side as well. When you put it all back together, you want to make sure those grooves all line up. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of wiggle that loose. Now you can see this is the inside of where the buttons are, and you can see these are where the little center punches actually push down on the buttons. And one of these stuck. So we'll take that off and put it back in here so that it's easier to put back together and we know where it is. So I'll go ahead and slide the button in the hole here. And now if we look at this side, we'll actually see what we're dealing with here for buttons. So you can see this button is dented and it's not coming back. So when we push on it, it's not springing. This one here springs, this one springs, and so does this one. So we're going to go ahead and replace this button right here. So in order to do that now, you have to kind of push hard. We're actually going to pry this little thing off, but you have to be careful not to damage the board. These are actually glued to the board. There's no solder holding these in place. So you're just going to push on both sides carefully so that you don't dig into the board, but hard enough you're actually going to possibly change every now and then. That was probably a little harder than I wanted to. Hopefully I didn't break anything. Get on this side over here. The buttons actually start to deform a little bit right before they pop off. Careful not to pry on any of the little chips or anything next to it while you're pushing on this. Let me see if I can actually get a bigger flathead screwdriver. It might work a little bit better. And I'm going to put on my awesome glasses here so that I can see better, because I can't see very well. Make sure I don't mess it up. I'm going to push. Oh, hey, the button just popped up. You also want to be careful not to push here, 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 or here at any of the contact points. You can be in the middle or on the sides, but don't be on the contact points or you'll bend them. Okay, this button's not coming off without a fight. I'm going to try and get under this edge again right here. Button's coming apart on the board instead of coming off. We're getting it. I'm just going to keep carefully working it. There we go. Get my little screwdriver here again. Okay. Just going to clean up these contacts a tiny bit. You don't want to push hard on them. It's really soft metal. Make sure the board's nice and clean. All right, so now we're going to take one of our new buttons here, and I actually picked these up on the internet. I'm not exactly sure where I got them from because I got them a while ago, but they're just small dimple buttons, and I did a web search to find them. I'll see if I can find them and put the link on this video. The numbers for them, though, are 072512, but of course I don't know if that means anything. It might just be what this company used to refer to them internally. All right, so I'm going to pop another button out of their little sleeve here. I think for 10 buttons, they were a couple bucks a piece, so it was like $20 if I remember right for 10 buttons, and I'm sure I paid way too much for them. But all right, the next thing I'm going to use is I'm going to use some of this Arctic alumina thermal adhesive. It actually comes in two parts, has to be mixed together. So I have a little piece of foil here. You can see I've done a couple of these already. Stuff sets and goes off pretty quickly. And let me make sure, actually before I set that in place, these batteries went dead while we were doing this. So let me put some fresher batteries in this. And then let's make sure this is actually going to work for us with these buttons before I glue it back in. So we'll power it up. Okay, it's powered. Again, no light on this one. And the up button works. Now I'm going to position the down button. Now this button has a little punch out on the side. The metal kind of sticks out right here. And you want to make sure that goes in the same direction that the other ones do. So all of them go to the right if you're looking at the bottom of that unit. So I'm going to just plop this button down inside there. I'm actually going to use a toothpick to get it lined up. And it'll sit right in between those contacts. And again, you can see it when you look at it with the magnifying lens, but they actually have little ridges on them. And you can see the buttons working. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that back out. And I'm actually just going to sit it off to the side here. And then I'm going to go ahead and mix some of this Arctic alumina thermal adhesive. So we're just going to take a little bit of this. The stuff's mixed 1 to 1. Just need a tiny bit. And then I'm going to take a toothpick. I'm going to blend it, mix it together. And then I only need a dab of this stuff. So I'm going to just barely get it on the toothpick. And I'm just going to put it on the board right in between the contact points. Need just a little bit more here. And then the button's going to sit right on top of that. So I'm going to pick that button back up here. Get this out of the way so I don't glue myself to the table. Use a little screwdriver to push it into place again. Make sure it seats in between those contacts. Make sure it still works, and it does. You don't want to push hard on that directly with the screwdriver. You could end up deforming it. And it looks good. So now I'm actually going to use the case to hold it in place while it dries. So I'm just going to put it back together and reverse the process how I just took it apart. So I'll lay the button faces down, make sure the buttons are all in there. I'll line up the antenna and this top plate, and then I'm going to line up these two grooves on the bottom for the battery tray. It's kind of finicky getting it all lined up, but once you get it lined up, it should drop right in. The antenna you have to be careful of because it's kind of a weird shape. Alright, once you get it all in there, you shouldn't force it. Everything should go in nice and easy. I'm going to go ahead and put in this back screw for the board. Start it by hand so you don't strip it. Use your torque screwdriver to put it in place. Get it nice and tight. Before I put the rest of it together, so make sure everything still works. It does. The buttons are working great. Now I'm going to slide this back panel in. And again, just want to make sure everything lines up. It should slide in there nice and easy. Put your screws in, start them by hand just a little bit so you don't strip them. Use your torque screwdriver. Nice and tight. Now this spring clip you can see is bent. You see how it's kind of misshapen a little bit. That's just from using it, taking it on and off the belt pack or the belt. So what I always do to get them back in shape, I always say they should look like a downhill skier. If you hold them on their feet like this, they should look like they're going downhill with their hands behind their back. So you can see this one's behind his back, this one's not. So I'm going to pull that one back a little bit, push them together. And then when you put them on, you want them in that same position to put them on so the keys line up. So I'm just going to pull that one down, pop it in the hole, pull that one down, pop it in the hole. Now the back's on. Flip it back over. We're going to put the door in. So you're just going to slide it in with the door open. Like this. Take that pin that we pulled out, line up the hole here, slide it back through the middle till it gets in the little spot where it clicks. And that's it. Fixed. Now the down button works, the up button works, and the power buttons work. Maybe some other time we'll figure out how to change the LED bulb as well. That's it.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
You said that you're supposed to put a dab of glue
Yes.
on the tin foil.
Yes.
Could you please dab for us?
I don't remember how. Is that like this?
There you go. Woo!
All right.
That's the first time Tim Thomas has ever dabbed. Ever.
This is true.
Congratulations.